want to start this episode of the podcast to be named later with a story from 2019. I had just become the Pittsburgh Pirates beat reporter for DK Pittsburgh Sports. I was still getting to know the clubhouse, and it wasn't exactly a great clubhouse to be in at the time because the Pirates were in free fall. At the end of the year, though, there was a little spark of excitement, and looking back on it now, little is the operative word. James Marvel, the minor league pitcher of the year for the Pirates that year, was getting a surprise promotion up to the major leagues. A little bit of excitement at that time. Marvel does his presser with all the local media. They say congratulations. They disperse. And there's James Marvel kind of in the middle of the Pirates clubhouse, not knowing anyone. He had started the year in Altoona. He really didn't know anyone in Indianapolis that was up in the major leagues because he'd been a late promotion himself. This wasn't even September 1st. This was kind of in the middle part of September that he got his promotion. And he's sitting there not really knowing what to do. Looked lost. Jacob Stallings walks over to him and says, "Hey, meet me in the bullpen in 5 minutes because I think I'm going to be catching you in your first start." He didn't know, but he wanted to see what James Marvel had, how his pitches performed, just in case he did catch him. Marvel ended up not really panning out on the major league levels. He's a minor league free agent at the moment. But that little exchange, that little moment kind of stuck with me because I imagine that conversation happening a lot in 2020, in 2021, and more importantly, in 2022 and 2023, whenever the Pirates' young pitching prospects were really going to start coming up to the major leagues, that there is going to be this reliable major league catcher waiting for them, ready to guide them into becoming major leaguers. That will not be the case. Good morning, and welcome to a special edition to the podcast to be named later here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. He's Jarrod Prugar. I'm Alex Stumpf. And in case you missed it somehow yesterday, Jacob Stallings has been traded to the Miami Marlins in, I frankly, the most surprising trade move of the Pirates offseason. I mean, this was something that I had alluded to as in an insider as kind of like a vague possibility, but now it actually happened. Jacob Stallings is no longer a Pirate.
Yeah, this is definitely the most shocking move of Ben Cherington's tenure. And, it's weird because you mentioned about that expertise. He's a Gold Glove, Jacob Stallings. He's a Gold Glove winner, right? And
yeah.
So my thing about this all is you are discarding that. And I understand that he still has 3 years of club control. He's going to be 32 next month. But to me, the catcher rules the roost on a roster. There's a reason why I feel like 95% of managers in baseball, and I know that number is exaggerated, are former catchers. They know the game. They are able to see everybody and every pitch, every outcome. That's what you need when you have a young team. And now, if you look at it, the way that things are going to play out here potentially in the next few days here before the lockout begins, the longest tenured Pirates are going to be Brian Reynolds, Kevin Newman, and potentially Cole Tucker. Potentially. I say potentially because who the hell knows at this point, at this stage. So in my opinion, and Alex and I were talking about this before we went live, I was going to tweet, and I'm so glad I didn't because words, there are screenshots that go. I'm sure all thousands of my followers would love to screenshot this, but I was going to say about Jacob Stallings being a really good stopgap between now and Henry Davis coming up in just a few years, whether he's ready to come next year or in 2023, which is what I would expect to happen. But I would much rather have him train and learn from Jacob Stallings rather than anybody else. This is a defensive guy that is incredibly defensively or incredible at the defense of the position. You can say what you want about hitting, but he's a serviceable hitter at the major league level. I mean, yeah, you can get, I guess, getting while the getting's hot. Potentially, this is an Adam Frazier kind of deal where this is the peak, but defense doesn't go away overnight.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's just a couple things that really stick with me. This is very impromptu. We normally just, shoot these off the cuff as is, but this one is, this news isn't that old whenever we are recording this. The first thing that sticks to me is he had 3 years of team control remaining. And we saw the nutting's cheap comments and all that stuff, but the money is absolutely not a factor in this situation. Stallings was set to be a Pirate for years to come at very reasonable major league salaries, even after a Gold Glove win. Money's not the issue. Team control is not the issue, which raises the question, why make the trade now? Well, the only reason to make the trade now is because the catching market is just so garbage. There's just absolutely nothing except for Wilson Contreras of the Cubs, who may or may not be available. And he only has 1 year of team control, and he's not a Gold Glove winner. Jacob Stallings versus Wilson Contreras, that's a pretty comparable, two comparable players in my mind. One of them is cheaper and has 3 years of team control and has every intangible that you want. He is the clubhouse leader. He is able to do game planning. He is really good at managing a pitching staff, all those things that you would really want. Every single box you can want from a catcher besides, like you said, offense, but he wasn't a slouch. He was a pretty close to average hitter, all things considered, average at his position at least. And that definitely does build trade value. In this trade return, I have a whole article on it on dkpittsburghsports.com. Go read it. I don't want to just hit the same points that I hit in that article again, but it's a pretty underwhelming trade return for a Gold Glove catcher as is, even without the context of he has 3 years of team control remaining and this market is horrible. I really don't get this move. And this is the first time Ben Cherington has made a trade that I really don't get. Like, I remember writing, after Adam Frazier, his trade value was higher than it ever was at the time. And the trade return was underwhelming, at least at the time. Like, you can like Marcano, you could like Sawinski. That's fine. They're both on the 40-man. We'll probably see him at the major leagues at some point in 2022. That's fine. The Josh Bell trade was kind of a look. It's probably a deal that has to be made because he's coming off of a bad year. If he has another bad year, you have to non-tender him. Just take the hedge bet at the moment. Marte, Musgrove, Tyon trades all look really good at the moment. Obviously, we're going to need a couple more years to, fully see how they pan out. But this is the first one that I really don't see really panning out or any way panning out. And it was an unforced error. If Will Crow and Eddie Gein don't turn out, it's one thing for Josh Bell because they traded a guy who was basically replacement level for most of his major league career. This is different. Jacob Stallings' trajectory is up. He just won a Gold Glove. He does everything that you want. He was a clubhouse leader, one of the few veteran voices for a team that desperately needs veteran voices. And no, a couple 40-plus grade prospects and former, high-round draft picks that were definitely not as highly sought after now as they were back then, or what it takes to trade, for a Gold Glover.
Yeah, there's no way. They sold Adam Frazier at his peak, at his highest, and Adam Frazier just got flipped to the Mariners earlier this week from San Diego. You mentioned the Musgrove trade. That's really the only piece that's left at this point of the Garrett Cole trade, and that brought David Bednar, Omar Cruz, Drake Fellows, Hudson Head, and Eddie Rodriguez to the organization. Other than that, man, they DFA'd 3 out of the 4 guys in that trade. That we're going to get to here a little bit after we talk about Stallings, but I just don't understand it because everything that you want in Stallings, like Ben Cherington to me has to have a backup plan in store and in tow, because if he doesn't, then that makes this move just look even more asinine than it already does, because Stallings is everything that you want: veteran presence, the pitching staff loves him. They pitch to him. Like, they love pitching to him for all intents and purposes. And they have success more often than not doing so at certain times. So he controls the pitching staff. He controls, the run game. 0 pass balls.
Yeah.
Unless there's somebody in the fold that we don't know about right now as of this recording, I just can't wrap my head around this decision. Like, I get Josh Bell. Okay, whatever. You have a Moran. You need a place for Moran. Whatever. I mean, Josh Bell had a bad season. Cool. Whatever. But man, I just don't get this one. And I've been trying to wrap my head around it since we saw it, since the rumor started swirling. But man, I just don't get it. I just don't.
No, I don't either. And like I said, like I get some of the other ones, even if I don't like the trade process. And I get the, this is the highest Jacob Stallings trade value will ever be angle of it. But is that doesn't
real,
mean
though?
you have to take the best offer you get. There is a difference between the two. There is absolutely no timetable to trade this guy after 3 years. And I alluded to this with the James Marvel story. So many pitchers are going to be coming up, and they're not going to have a Jacob Stallings to throw to, no matter who the Pirates get. Whether it's an Andrew Knapp or a Chance Sisco or Robinson Chirinos, or I'm just trying to think of who the hell is still available on the free agent market, if they could even get one before the collective bargaining agreement expires on December 1st, which if they don't, imagine going through this whole lockout with zero catchers on the 40-man roster. That will be concerning. It's not a good situation to be in. I don't know why. This goes completely against everything Ben Cherington has set out. The 2022 Major League Pirates team, I don't know how you can say with a straight face, this team is going to be better than they were in 2021. And if the whole goal is to get better every day, every year, mission failed on this one. Failed on this one. If the goal is to accumulate, talent and build that player-centric culture. Boy, trading away your clubhouse leader definitely isn't going to help that either.
Yeah, again, why? Why did they do this? Is this because did they get a Jeter gift basket too? Like, is that the reason why Ben Cherington wanted that? This is the issue here, right? Like, you talk about getting better every year. Well, you don't trade away your Gold Glove catcher. Defense plays in this league. Defense plays, especially in a year where you're probably going to get to DH. So you're back to square one where you probably have 8 hitters in the lineup with the DH. If you're suggesting that the catching position isn't a serviceable one at hitting, defense plays, controlling a pitching staff and operating a pitching staff plays. Not to trade away. Like, okay, so say he gets traded away and it's for a major league ready first baseman, a top level starter, and a fringe catcher. Okay, cool. Maybe that works. But the haul that they got for Jacob Stallings, I don't think that they should have made that trade, to be perfectly honest with you. You can't, and again, like you said, you can't sit here and say that in 2022, the Pirates are going to be markedly better because you just lost your clubhouse. You just lost your clubhouse leader. You just lost your starting catcher. Your only catcher, to be perfectly honest with you right now. Carter Binns stepped right up.
Except he can't.
Exactly.
He's in Double-A.
Exactly. So, I mean, to me, Ben Cherington has got to have something up his sleeve for tomorrow, or even, of course, probably overnight, because why not today, the way that things have gone. But this is a head scratcher to me, and I don't understand it. I don't think I'll ever understand it. And hopefully, after the entire roster gets overhauled by the beginning of the league season, maybe Ben Cherington will give us some answers. But man, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah. And, I mean, this is straight, audio column or everything. I have said, a lot of these trades, it stinks to trade a Town. It stinks to trade a Marte, a Musgrove. Those trades look like they'll be good in the long run, or they already are paying dividends with guys like Bednar. This one's just bad. I have a hard time seeing this one really turning out to be a good trade. Like Thompson, I tweeted this out. A National League analyst, gave me a quick rundown shortly after the trade. Thompson is probably a back end of the rotation or a swing guy in the rotation. Nicholas has two good pitches, no control, and a shoddy changeup. He might end up being a bullpen arm. If he becomes a starter, maybe it's a different story, but for now, probably a bullpen guy. And Scott is a former first-round draft pick, but he really hasn't performed professionally at that level. You can like some of the tools, but he kind of looks like a toolsy fourth outfielder, which, good God, do the Pirates need another one? Do they really need another one at the moment?
They just promoted 2 or 3 to the active or to the 40-man roster just last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So I don't like the return. Even if it was a good return and the Pirates would have gotten a top 100 prospect, a lottery ticket or two, I still don't think I would have liked it, because Stallings was, in my mind, the most indispensable part of that team, like even more so than Brian Reynolds. And I don't mean that as an insult to Brian Reynolds, but if the Pirates were to trade him, they have plenty of outfielders that they could at least throw into the fire and see what happens. And the return you would get is massive.
And the thing with me is, it's not even just the baseball player, Jacob Stallings here. It's the intangibles. It's the stuff that he does off the field that I think are more important than what he does on the field. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good baseball player. He obviously, we mentioned it a million times, Gold Glove, a serviceable hitter at the major league level. It's the intangibles. It's the stat. It's handling the pitching staff. It's being a leader. It's being that clubhouse presence. It's being that veteran. And now, you look at Kevin Newman, you look at Brian Reynolds, you look at Cole Tucker. And to me, and this is no disrespect to those guys, those aren't clubhouse guys at this point in time. I mean, you look back to when the Pirates started the rebuild to be like Russell Martin. I think today, November 29th is the anniversary of him signing. Russell Martin was that clubhouse presence they needed. A.J. Burnett was that clubhouse presence they needed. Jacob Stallings was that clubhouse presence they already had. Now they got to go out and get that clubhouse presence, that veteran presence. And where are you going to find it at this stage of the game?
Yeah, you're not. You're not. This is just going to be a glaring hole in 2022. And there's a whole lot of eggs in the Henry Davis will be ready in 2023 basket. 2022 Pirates baseball, like I said it in live cues and everything. I thought the 2022 team, I gave very tepid, realistic, expectations of 70 wins might be possible, a full year of O'Neal Cruz, more of those young starting pitchers coming up. And having that Gold Glove catcher behind the mound or behind the plate to help everyone and be that clubhouse leader. 70 wins seemed like it was a possibility. Now, I don't see how this team wins 70. I think this team is going to, again, in 2022, lose close to 100 games, at which point can you keep Derek Shelton as your manager after 3 years of last place, pretty definitively last place finishes? And that's not even really fair to Shelton, in my opinion. It's not even like a John Russell situation where he at least had that wave of, he got his hands on that wave of talent. Shelton never really did. And he put so much faith. He spent so much time, elevating Stallings to make sure he had that platform, to make sure that he felt comfortable to be that clubhouse leader. And honestly, it was probably one of Shelton's greatest successes as a major league manager, to elevate that voice in the clubhouse, to give him that push so he could be that guy. That really benefit. That's part of that relationship building and the trust that so much of this organization is built on. How do you have that relationship? You lost those relationships. You lost some of that trust with a trade like this out of the blue for something that does not help your 2022 major league team. It's bad.
Dude, it's so, I mean, it goes against everything that they've been preaching since this front office took over. And I feel bad for Derek Shelton. You can only play who you have, who you've got available. I mean, I don't think this is indicative of who he is as a manager. Because for all intents and purposes, I think he's done a very good job with what he's got. But man, when you don't have much, I mean, I'm looking at the salaries, and this is taking away Stephen Brault right now, because Stephen Brault was DFA'd earlier on Monday. Right now, the total salary is $22 million or $20 million ish, give or take.
Guaranteed. There are pre-arb contracts that'll raise that also. But no, it's $20 million. And the two additions that they have made to their team so far, as of this recording, are Yoshi Tsutsugo and Jose Quintana, and they ditched Moran and Brault to get them on the roster. At which point, it's like,
don't forget about Ben Gamel. Let's not forget about Ben Gamel.
Okay, I'm just talking pure additions. Gamel was always under team control, but that's what did you do? You could say, okay, Quintana's an upgrade over Brault, not a huge one. You could say Yoshi's an upgrade over Moran, not a huge one. Like, that's where you're looking to improve, and then you trade the Gold Glove catcher on top of that. Dejan touched on this a while ago for a Daily Shot, and it kind of struck me whenever I saw the headlines, like, all right, that's a pretty spicy one, where he's like, why does Ben Cherington get afforded, 3 years of just terrible baseball? And that's it. Like, we're talking about how Derek Shelton's head might have to roll after 3 years of terrible baseball, fielding teams that weren't any good, or didn't have enough major league talent to seriously contend. And I think the direction of the organization overall is going the right way, but this is a step back. This is a step back. You don't bolster the farm system nearly enough that you need to entertain a trade like this. You lose one of your best major league players in the process, so that product is going to be hurt in there. It's a trade that doesn't benefit them now. It's a trade that I don't see them benefiting them in the long term. It does hurt them whenever every single time a Yajure, a Contreras, a Quinn Priester, a Michael Burrows, all those young pitchers that are supposed to come up through the farm system in 2022 or 2023 that Jacob Stallings easily could have been under team control for. Just not happening.
Yeah, this is just and like DK has mentioned, man, like, this is on Cherington. This isn't on Derek Shelton by any means. I mean, it is, but to a lesser extent. Right. I mean, as a manager, you got to go out and put your team in positions to the team that you have, right? The team that you have right now, he's hitting with 8. He doesn't have a catcher. Maybe Neil Walker has a couple of years left. He can go back to catcher now that he's in the broadcast booth. But like, somewhere out there, Hoyt Park is putting on a chest protector and catcher's mask. You're like, let's do this, baby. Yeah, and I mean, all credit to Derek Shelton for dealing with what he's got. But again, this is on Cherington, man. This is solely on Ben Cherington, because in my opinion, I mean, Derek Shelton's doing the best he can with what he's got, and at some point, dealing him with these players, and this is no disrespect with who they've got, but you can't sit here and say that you want to be a better organization and a better team by trading your best defensive player. No, you just can't. That to me is on the general manager. You cannot. This is an undeniable fact. You cannot say that you are getting better whenever you have 0 catchers. You just can't. You just can't. This one stunk. This is a bad trade. You know what? If 5 years from now, all these kids end up hitting, I'll own up to it. But I will stand by right now. This trade goes against what they are trying to do right now. I don't see them being a better organization after this trade than they were before it. Yeah. They lost that clubhouse guy. They lost a lot more than the 3 WAR and the Gold Glove that he provided. If I'm Brian Reynolds, I would like to know what the next move is. That's fair. I mean, because the impression I got from this was, the Pirates were just listening
on Stallings offers the same way they are just listening on Brian Reynolds offers. And like, a due diligence, not saying they're shipping or shopping Brian Reynolds, but you can't say, oh, there's no chance, like go away. You have to at least be like, all right, what are you willing to give up? Just in case a team says something absolutely stupid. Doesn't sound like the Marlins gave up anything stupid.
No, not even close.
Because they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many different questions that I have as a result of this. And I think that's what's scary too, because this goes against what they've been trying to do. Because this is not a build. This is not a reload. This is a dump, and this is a dump and chase whatever other options are, to borrow a hockey term there. But like tomorrow today, I guess I should say, when Ben Cherington speaks on Tuesday, he has to own up for this decision and give it. Now's the time to be transparent. This is the vision of our organization. This is the vision of our team. This is what the direction is that we're going to go. And if he doesn't do that, then that's an absolute shame on him, because at this point, the fans, the organization, the players need answers, which I'm sure that he probably would know and they'd be privy to before we would. But it's time to be transparent and say, hey, this is the direction that we're going. This is our vision. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And hopefully it makes sense.
I think we should end it there for what it's worth.
Yeah, there's not much else to say.
No, we're just running in circles at this point. Thank you so much for tuning into a special episode of the podcast to be named later. We'll have a normal episode up on Saturday where we're going to talk about all the other players who were non-tendered, not just Brault and Moran. We'll get into more detail for them also. But for Jarrod Prugar, I'm Alex Stumpf saying thank you so much for listening. Subscribe to the DK Pittsburgh Sports podcasting feed. We will talk again next week.